Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Performance eStreaming's live coverage of the Pocono Raceway E53 Cup race tonight. And with me tonight, I have Ryan Jones for the first time up in the box. Ryan, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Thank you, Carl. I'm interested to see how this race unfolds. I'm up in the con box for once. Can't race today for reasons. So, this should be.
Yes, for reasons we won't mention. We won't mention in fear of needing a bleed button. But yeah, it should be an interesting race for tonight. We just got Edward Foster up for the first qualifying lap of the evening. And on this kind of super speedway, qualifying is useful, of course. You don't want to be right at the back of the field if there is an accident early on, but it's not as important at some of the races we've had, especially the short track ovals, of course.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to point out is just how different these cars drive at this track now with this new package. Obviously, we've got a lot less horsepower. I believe there's a 550 horsepower in this car, and a lot more downforce. And so, on these new tyres, these guys aren't even braking. They're lifting off into the corners and they're accelerating straight through them. So it definitely makes things a lot.
It is. It's definitely a little bit easier. Well, not to say easier, but these cars have got much more grip, and they're not going quite as fast as they would have been when they had all those horses available to them. But once they're getting into the stream of other people, once they're getting behind people, and drag is being reduced, and they're getting the slipstream, these cars are catching at an incredible rate. But they're losing so much downforce with that as well. They're often having real big troubles coming out of the corners.
Yeah, well, it should make for an interesting race because with that draft, it could mean that guys are just unable to get away from other people, and we could see almost a bit of a big line, a big snake of cars. As we just see Edwards done his first lap, it's a 52.8.
Not a bad first lap. Roger Clark's just gone through and actually just beaten him with a 52.4. That is a very good lap from Roger Clark there compared to Foster. But of course, usually the second lap is your faster lap on these super speedways because the car does tend to get up to a little bit better speed and things like that. Although Pocono is such a long track, that first lap you still have some relative speed going into it.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what the second lap will be from Edward because unlike a super speedway, this track you do have to lift off though, and so I'm interested to see whether the tyre wear is sort of relevant after one lap, but it does turn out Edward has gone faster. He's improved by about a tenth. It's a 52.71, so still a long way off.
Yeah, a really good lap there from Roger Clark. That was a fantastic first lap for him. Really good speeds as well for him as well. And he's just gone through it, and that second lap was a little bit slower for Roger as well. Just before we carry on, though, what I might do is just run through the top 10 of the championship before I forget. So, leading the championship is Jason Martin with 333 points, in joint first place with Josh Michelmore. In third place, we have Michael Scurlock with 298. Fourth place, we have Danny G with 284. Fifth place, Edward Foster with 263. Sixth is Dave Douglas with 268. Seventh is Stephen Williams with 267. Eighth, we have Riley Curtis with 261. In ninth place, we have Mirko Dautanac with 260. And then in joint 10th place, we have Matt Danson and Matthew Clurt with 257. But importantly tonight, we're actually missing Danson and Danny G. So there are a couple of cars out there that are not going to be getting points tonight.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing with this championship is as much as we always say Jason Martin is dominating the race, he's dominating the championship, he's a level on points with Michelmore at the moment for the top with 330. And I'm interested to see whether these two race each other any differently tonight, knowing that they're fighting for the lead of the championship.
It does make things a little bit different when you are fighting for that championship because you want to make sure that you finish the race and you want to make sure you finish in a decent place. Jason Martin, it's been a bit of an odd year for him because he's only had one win so far this year at the last race at Charlotte. And unlike the Thunder Series, where Jason Martin has been pretty much winning everything, we've not really had many double victories this season. Only Matt Danson is holding 2 wins this season so far. And it's kept everything very close in the championship. Josh Michelmore, of course, won the first race at Daytona. but he hasn't won a race since. But they've just been so consistent with that Mitch Motorsport team. They've been so consistent and just able to keep their car up there in the points.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a product of the new package we have for the Cup car. Is it does even the playing field out just a little bit, and some of the guys that don't quite have that raw pace, certainly on the short runs where a lot of it's flat out in certain tracks, it can just sort of throw a wild card into the mix where someone else can shoot into the front and go, "Hey, I'm here, I can win."
Yeah, and we've seen that a bit this year, where you know, especially with Mirko Dautanac wing, where he just pulled a great one out with the strategy call, and there has been that little bit of unpredictability to it. And with these new cars, everybody's got pretty much a good grasp on them now because they've had some time with them. But they are coming to new tracks that they're not so used to running these cars on. Pocono, for instance, is a track that, when you're running in the old configuration, you're having to brake a little bit through those corners, having to lift a bit more. Now you're able to go almost flat out through those corners, just a little bit of lifting, and it changes the whole way you drive these cars now.
Yeah, it certainly does. And let's just head back to qualifying now. Michael Scurlock's out on the track. I'm interested to see how he runs tonight. He's a very consistent performer, and he's normally at the front in every series he does. And
Yep,
Dave Douglas actually just on a 51.97 as well to go to the top.
yeah, that was a fantastic lap from Dave. He's the first one into the 51s. I was just about to say that myself. He really pulled one out of the bag there, and he's just coming on to his second lap now. But it's going to be interesting to see where some of the other guys sit. Scurlock, for instance, is usually fast. Jason Martin, he's going to be he's out on the track now, and that's going to be an interesting one to see how well he goes, because usually qualifying is his biggest strength.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think 9 times out of 10, we normally see Jason Martin on pole. And with the lack of any Matt Danson tonight or Braden Boulos, it certainly would be my pick to be on pole position. But I'm hoping secretly that we can get someone else up there and maybe have a bit of an exciting.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is you sort of it's very tricky being up in the commentary booth sometimes, because it's great to see somebody having a fantastic race and having a just fantastic championship. Scurlock actually moving up into third place now. Really good lap by him, but still a bit off of that lap by Dave Douglas, who has just got almost the perfect lap in. But we have Jason Martin coming up for his first time lap now, but it's keeping sort of impartial sometimes, because it's great to see somebody dominating a race, but you do want to see some actual racing there, and you do want to see some different faces up on the top of the step of the podium.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not to take away from Martin because he's an exceptional driver. And at first lap, actually, a bit surprising. It's only a 52.28, which puts him sixth. But
Yeah,
he's a fantastic driver, and you can't take it away from him. The fact that he just dominates because he's just that good. And it's up to everyone else to really get to that level.
and that's it. Josh Michelmore's actually just had a very good time. He's got himself into second place with a 52.1 on his second lap. So there is still speed to be gained on that second lap, apparently. So we'll see how Jason Martin can do this time round. He might be able to get a little bit faster. He's coming round the final corner now, so coming onto the start-finish straight. And we'll see if this time is actually an improvement. And no, not an improvement at all. Jason Martin's down in 7th place for the start of this race. So Dave Douglas really has just pulled one out the bag there. He has just set a fantastic lap.
Yeah, and that lap certainly is incredible. It's the fastest lap we've seen in practice or qualifying today. So certainly probably the best he can do at this track. Pretty much everyone set their times. Riley Curtis, is he about to do one, or is he still in the pits? No, it looks like that's how the qualifying order is going to be.
Yes, that looks like that's our qualifying order. So Ryan, I'll let you have the honour of running us through the qualifying results.
Alrighty then. Well, the front row, pole position is going to go to Dave Douglas. He'll have Josh Michelmore to his outside. Carl Sloggett and Matthew Clute make it an MFR second row. Then it's an Illusion third row with Michael Scurlock and Chris Purnell. Jason Martin, bit of a surprise. He's back in 7th place. He's got Stephen Williams to his outside. And it's Roger Clark and Mirko Dautanac rounding out the top 10. They're followed by Norman Clark and Edward Foster. And on the back row, it's Gareth Anderson and Riley Curtis.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise there to see Edward Foster so down the field, because usually he's one we expect to be quite up there. Dave Douglas has been running quite a lot in practice. I was watching him through the practice sessions, and he's sort of doing a lot of solo running as well. And maybe that's just helped him get his eye a little bit better into the track. I know that you were watching some of his laps earlier on in the practice session, and he was very smooth with the car, and he just had this really good ability just to lift off just at the right point, but keep the car going fast.
Yeah, he was doing a great good job. And I think it's all going to be about figuring out how to make that car stay fast in the draft and in clean air. Because I think if we get a long run tonight, you're going to end up in clean air, but certainly off the restarts, if we get any, and off the start of the race, you're going to be a lot of dirty air, and you've got to figure out how to keep that car fast and off.
It's keeping the car fast and also trying to keep the car behind you, sort of out of your stream, basically out of that slipstream, and that can be one of the harder things, of course, because everybody's going to get that nice toe down down the straight. One of the things that could be an advantage up front leading is you might just be able to look after your tyres a little bit better. Because you're in that clean air, you're not going to be moving around quite as much. And we have noticed that these cars are sliding quite a bit when they are in that draft. So tyre wear could be an issue for some of these drivers who are a bit further back in the field. But it also can depend on how the race goes for safety cars, things like that as well. And that's a big concern. It's only a small field tonight. We've only got 14 cars out there. But if we get a safety car sort of early on, if we have a big accident, we could lose a lot of runners quite quickly in this race.
From a racing perspective, I really hope that does not happen, because I'm excited to see how this race pans out, and I think we could be in for a good race today. Jason Martin coming through the pack, and a few guys up front eager to win a race and prove a point. So hopefully it's true.
Yeah, we'll hopefully see that, and it's one of the big things as well is actually with Matthew Cluett and Kai Sloggett up there with the MFR racing team. They've got relatively close together. They're the only two teammates that are sort of the first two teammates, I should say, that are close together. Behind them, there's Chris Purnell and Michael Scurlock as well. So Illusion have got a couple of cars up there early on as well, and that could be a big difference maker. Having your teammates up there, it's going to help you out quite a lot.
Yeah, we'll see if the teammates do work together today. I know sometimes the teammates sort of just race each other how they'd normally race each other, but if they work together, maybe they can make something work, as we just see the pace car's going to come down off of turn 3 and he'll peel off into pit road, and Douglas will take him to the green flag.
Yeah, so Dave Douglas will effectively become the pace car in any moment, and he will get ready to drop the hammer quite soon. And we are green, and away we go. Great start by Josh Michelmore there. He's actually got a very good pull off the lead, off the start there, sorry. Up on the high line, Dave Douglas is down nice and low.
Yep, it's going to be side by side through turn 1 on lap 1 here. See who comes out in front, and looks like Douglas just got his car in front at the moment. Is he going to slide up in front of him? He's not. He's going to leave that room out there for Michelmore, and you can see already that this draft is quite big here. It's very.
Yeah, the draft is definitely helping out here, and Michelmore has got his car just needed to be a little bit further forwards, but he's just slowed down going through that corner and given Dave Douglas the chance to get in front. Everybody's running sort of one by one at the moment, but the dirty air coming off these guys is really sort of starting to show as well, because a lot of these guys, you can sort of see them just wiggling a little bit, and just getting the tyres up to temperature, just getting everything ready for the race. There's definitely been a couple of big wiggles out there.
Yeah, and just looking back on Jason Martin watch, he crossed the line in 6th place, but he's got Chris Purnell to his outside, so he's fighting hard for his positions at the moment, as he's just going to clear him now, coming out of turn.
Yeah, he just got through there. Good move by Jason Martin. He needed to get past those Illusion cars pretty quickly. But now the cars of Cluett, Scurlock and Slogger are up in front of him. and they are starting to pull away a little bit at the front, down to Scurlock. There's a little bit of a gap forming between Scurlock and Cluett now, and we might see this sort of couple of packs forming up quite early here, because a few cars have really dropped off quite early on. Edward Foster's made a relatively good start, getting up to 11th, but he's pretty much heading up the sort of the back end of the field now, and he's losing touch with the car in front of him, which is Mirko Dautanac. And if that happens, we could see them dropping back quite quickly.
Yeah, I think they could drop back, but maybe they are expecting a green flag run here all the way through, and maybe just saving a bit of their tyres. That could be a strategy that.
That's a strategy we've seen played out quite well through the year. There's been a couple of races, usually with of course Matt Danson being able to save his tyre life. He's got just an annoying ability just to be able to save tyre life where you just don't expect it. But another person that tends to run really long and keep those tyres well is Dave Douglas, and with Dave out in front, that could be very difficult for the rest of the field, because if he can keep his tyres like he usually does, he's gonna be sitting in a very good position now. And if we do run green, he could be in a very good position. And I just think Kai Slogger there just caught the wall. I think I just saw out the corner of my eye.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure who that was. I was just watching the battle for 6th place at the moment. Here we go. We've got Matthew Cluett, Jason Martin, and Michael Scurlock, Chris Burnell, sorry, are going at it, as we just going to see Martin head down to the inside of Matthew Cluett, see if he can get this move done.
Yeah, Cluett's actually got a big bit of damage to the front right of his car, I believe, or it might have been Sloggett, sorry. One of those cars has actually managed to get a little bit of damage on them just by tapping the wall. And when you get some damage on these cars, it's not very good, because your aero is going to really be affected.
Yeah, and I've just noticed Kyle Sloggett with that damage. He seems to be quite slow at the moment. He hasn't quite got that speed. As that was close. His team went onto the back of him there, and you can see as they all go past him, that little touch with the wall is really hurting him.
Yeah, it's cost him dearly, and he is just losing so much speed over the rest of the cars in front of him, really. Michael Scurlock is just pulling away now, just getting a really good lead, but this has helped Jason Martin. He's getting up there a bit quicker now. He's currently in 6th place, but he's going to be getting up towards some of the other cars soon, and getting up into that sort of top 4 position. I think he's going to be sort of top 4, top 5 very, very soon.
Yeah, speaking of that top 4 and 5, the top 3 cars have broken away, and they are quite close together. Michelmore gave Douglas, it looked like a bit of a bump into turn number 3 last time round, so these guys are fighting hard. I'm interested to see whether Michelmore might just sit in behind Douglas here and maybe try and save a bit of fuel in that toe, or whether he wants to get past him, get out and lead this.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those races, I think, where we're going to have people just sort of conserving their tyres a little bit more than others. And if we do look at a green flag race all the way through, people trying to maybe go for a one-stopper over a lot of people who may go for do 2 stops, we could see a very interesting race play out here. And they are racing hard at the front. Josh Michelmore is just really harassing Dave Douglas, but he's sort of he's just dropping down now on the low side, and it looks like Josh Michelmore is going to go through Dave Douglas on this time. We'll just see how Dave Douglas's run is on the outside of this corner.
Yeah, he's going to get the momentum off turn 2 there. He's going to get his nose back in front for into turn 2, sorry. And he's not going to be able to clear him though, so he's still going to be the underside there for Michelmore. Side by side, quite easy to run side by side on this track, it must be said. It's certainly not a tight track, so.
No, it has got some relatively good grip around it, but I think Dave Douglas may have just tapped the wall there, just very gently on the front right of his car. It does look like he's actually got a little bit of damage now as well. So I think Dave Douglas just tapped the wall as he was going into turn number 3 there. But he's coming back, and he's got back on the toe and going underneath Josh Michelmore this time.
Yeah, I just went back and had a look. He definitely got into the wall. There is certainly some damage there. It doesn't look to be too significant. Certainly not to the extent of Kyle Sloggett, but hopefully it doesn't hamper his performance for racing's sake.
Yes, we can hope that Dave keeps nice and fast, and it appears he is. He seems to have the speed still. Kai Sloggett has dropped all the way down to seventh place now. That touch of the wall earlier on has really hampered his car, and the speed of that car seems to just be dropping and dropping and dropping. But Dave seems to be able to keep the car in relatively good shape here. But of course, when you do start getting those little bits of aero damage on the car, you can start getting a bit more wear on your tyres. So this could be affecting a couple of his tyres a little bit worse than cars around him. And maybe Josh Michelmore is going to be thinking about that, trying to conserve his tyres a little bit, because Dave Douglas might start losing performance relatively quickly with that damage.
Yeah, and was that Scurlock up into the wall there off turn number 2, or did he just check up to avoid it? Jason Martin's also still on the back straight. I'll go
Yeah,
look
he's
and see
lost
what
a lot of time there, actually. Scurlock has just fallen all the way back. Got Chris Purnell, Jason Martin just going past him.
I can tell you that Scurlock did not get the wall. He did a very good job to miss it. Looks like he probably got a bit tight coming off of turn number 1 and just had to really back it up to avoid the wall. And unfortunately for Martin, that meant he had to back it up as well, and everyone else sort of went past him.
Yeah, and Josh Michelmore has got ahead of Douglas now, and he is trying his best to break the toe. Just down the front straight there, the cars were just weaving all the way across the circuit, left and right, as Michelmore was just trying to break the toe from Douglas so he could pull a bit of a gap away from him. And oh, so close to the wall there, those two. They are just running so close to the wall just then.
Yeah, it looks like they finally got sick of this drafting sort of back and forth racing that they've been in the last couple of months. We just see Dave Douglas going to lose another spot now to Chris Purnell. He's going to get to his inside. He's going to clear them before they even get down into turn number 3.
Yeah, Douglas there just losing a lot of speed going through the corner. He just got caught out. He just was going on the outside of the corner, and it appears that the car's getting a little bit of a handful to keep turning into the corner, and just on the exits, he's having to lift a bit more than everybody else around him. And I don't know how much of that could be down to tyres and how much of that could be down to damage, but it's meant Michelmore's got a good lead up in front.
Yeah, it certainly Douglas seems to be struggling now. Just on the exit of the corners, he's running quite wide. I did notice earlier on too, he was running a bit higher coming off the corners, getting a lot closer to that wall. So maybe he's just used up his tyres a bit.
Yeah,
Or maybe he's just decided it's time to save them a bit. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see here what Douglas does. I mean, he's going to be hoping for a caution to come out just so he can get that little bit of repair done, hopefully, and get some fresh boots on that car. But Jason Martin is starting to climb up now, and he's making up the positions relatively quickly. Oh, and Jason Martin has big moment. Jason Martin back then, and he's got some damage. Jason Martin just had a huge moment, and we've got a caution flag out.
Yeah, you've done the old commentator's curse there, Carl.
I have, yes, and not what we want to do. I'll go back and try and see what happened there, but
Yeah,
I don't know if that was as much a curse or a blessing for Dave Douglas, because the yellow flag is what he needed.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at this off turn 3, and he's just run throughout the track. He's gone on the wall, and a pretty decent save actually to stop the car from spinning out completely. And is that the reason for the caution flag? Is Martin
Yeah. We actually think maybe Riley Curtis is the cause of that caution flag. He was going around and he's got a lot of damage to the car. He's got a smoking engine and everything like that. So Riley Curtis might well have been the cause of that caution.
Yeah, he was. Oh, I've just seen it now, and yep, he's done exactly the same thing as Martin's done. Not sure when we'll get a replay up for you guys, but yeah, he's done exactly the same thing as Jason Martin. Unfortunately, he's not been able to save it, and he's spun down, gone really hard into that inside pit wall.
Not a very good night for Riley Curtis there. He's not had the best of nights by the looks of things. He didn't manage to get into qualifying, and looks like his race is effectively over as well. He might try and get a repair done to that car just to cross the line for some points, but it's going to be a lonely race for him down there in 14th place. But
Yeah, and
this is
that
going to
is,
be. Sorry,
sorry to
Ryan.
interrupt you. That is a that is a quite a big point to make about tonight. Only having 14 cars out on track means that even for Riley Curtis now, if he comes across the line in 14th place, that's still a decent haul of points. It's not like we have a 40 car field and you crash out, you come 40th, you pick up 1 point. 14th place will get you some decent points for the championship.
And that's a really good point, is because we've been having a little bit of a smaller field through some of these races the last couple of weeks, and it has helped a few people climb up the leaderboards quite a bit. And only 14 cars out there tonight. You're just going to want to try and keep the car running and alive, and just get across the line to score the points, basically, because it's a huge points haul, and it's going to just leap you up in the championship. Because, with that said, there are a fair few cars that aren't out there tonight as well. But the car's coming into the pit lane now, so we'll see how they all go. Jason Martin, of course, could be his usual his Achilles pit stop, as we call it sometimes. But we'll see how he goes there. And Dave Douglas is going to get helped out a lot here because he's going to be able to repair that damage.
Well, we might actually. I'm interested to see whether Martin does take a longer pit stop here, and like Douglas might, and see whether these guys get their damage repaired. Because I think with a smaller field, you could definitely afford to drop back a
Oh,
bit and get rid
and
of that.
Dave Douglas has made a huge mistake going into the pit box. He's overshot by a huge margin, and that's meant he's effectively had to reverse the car a bit, and he had to reverse twice. So he's really going to lose out quite poorly in this pit stop. Doesn't look like Jason Martin is repairing, but it looks like Dave Douglas didn't repair the damage on his car. I think he just went because he made that mistake. I think he's just gone with the car as it is. But Jason Martin does definitely look like he's repairing that car up, getting the car back to some form of condition. And as I say that, the front fender's just popped back out, so it's looking good for him now. But Dave Douglas didn't go for the repair there by the looks of things.
Yeah, maybe he feels like the damage isn't limiting at all. And if it's not, fair play, keep racing. If it is though, especially with that mistake, I think I would have definitely pitted and taken those repairs because once you've made that mistake, you've lost the advantage you had. So there's no point not repairing it.
Yeah, that's it. It's sort of, you're going to lose a couple of positions, but on such a small field, those few positions aren't as detrimental as if it was a full car field. One car that has gained some good positions from that pit stop though was actually Edward Foster, E53 himself. He's actually gone all the way up into sixth place, so that's really helped him out for his race. Climbed him up there, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes this evening because he's not been looking fast all throughout practice and qualifying. It has looked like Foster's been struggling a bit, and usually we see him towards the front of the field most of the time. So we'll see how that goes for him.
Yeah, he's gained 2 positions in this race so far, which isn't. Oh, he's gained 6 positions actually. My time on the screens are just updated. So he's been the biggest improver of this race so far. Up 6 spots. Chris Purnell as well. He's done an exceptional job. He's up 4 spots. He's starting 6. He's going to restart on the outside of the front row, and it's going to be Josh Michelmore that's going to be leading the field off this restart. And it looks like we'll get a restart on this lap too.
Yes, and I'm sure Josh Michelmore is going to be chatting with Jason Martin to let him know when he's going to drop the hammer. Um, but usually Josh Michelmore he's pretty good at his restarts, so he's backing up and going to start accelerating very shortly. And we'll see if Chris Purnell can actually hold on and keep close to Michelmore.
Yeah, they're going to get through turn 2 and 3 first, Carl.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time to go before they get there. Um, in these restart situations, though, it is very sort of it's very tricky because the the first car obviously has a huge advantage because they know when they're going to accelerate. When you're the car next to them, what are you usually doing in this sort of situation? What goes through your mind when you're sort of in a restart situation like this?
I think restarting from second place, um, and it does sort of, it's a bit difficult restarting from second place, especially if you have sort of a single screen setup. You can't quite see that car to the left of you. And I've always said I prefer restarting in third to second, because you can clearly see on that car in front of you goes. But yeah, the advantage that the first place guy gets is it's pretty big, and that's why we normally see our number one man jump away off the restarts and the starts. But pace car's peeled off, and Michelmore, as I've said, he's just peeled away from the field, and he's got a great restart. We'll see if anyone can get back up to him in the giraffe before we get to turn 1.
Michelmore just went, as soon as that safety car pulled in, he just dropped the hammer and went straight for it, didn't he? He really pulled away there. And one of the things that Illusion were probably wanting was trying to stick together, but it looks like Matthew Quirk has actually managed to break the two Illusion cars up, but nope, they've got back ahead of him. So Purnell and Scurlock are together now, and just behind them is, I believe, Dave Douglas, who's actually got back up there, and he's racing relatively hard with those guys now. But the two Illusion cars having those positions, that's going to be quite helpful for them, because obviously they're going to be able to work together a little bit easier and maybe catch up to Michelmore up in front.
Yep, and the two Riley Curtis design cars as well in behind them of Dave Douglas and Edward Foster. If Foster can get up to the back of Douglas, they could work together too. I think bump drafting on this track could be quite beneficial.
Yeah, the bump draft could be quite beneficial to each other, and it's Josh Michelmore there, just got a
back in the pack, Roger Clark, he's just got a touch, sorry to interrupt you, but Stephen Williams just got up into the left rear of Roger Clark, and a good save not to go around. He certainly got sideways. I thought that was going to be a bit of a...
Yeah, it looked like everybody was struggling to get through those sort of first corners with those tyres, I think down the back we've actually got, I believe Mirko Dautanac just made a big bit of contact with the wall, yeah, everybody looks to be really struggling out there, but the two Illusion cars are starting to really put some pace together and are getting up towards Michelmore and look like they're going to try and pass him now using the bump draft.
Yeah, I'll see how this works for them. Around the outside is where they've chosen to go for this one. And it looks like Purnell's gonna... Oh, no, it's gonna be contact in front of the field, and around goes Michelmore, hard on the fence. Purnell's gone up into the wall as well, and that has taken out two very fast people.
That was a huge crash. Purnell has really come off worse for wear there. Michelmore had a big spin around, but it didn't look like he made huge amounts of contact with the wall. That's something to be almost thankful for, but Purnell was just getting just above him, and just lost it going through that corner, and yeah, it's all gone wrong for them.
Yeah, well, the back of Michelmore's car certainly looks like it's met the wall. It's really damaged on the back of Michelmore there. That's going to hurt him a lot. And the front end of Purnell's car equally as damaged.
Yeah, it looks
as
like
Michael Scurlock got through there with no damage.
Yeah, Scurlock miraculously getting through there, and a lot of other cars as well. I mean, if this was a larger field, I think we would have seen a huge crash there. I think that would have been almost half a field wiped out. That was the big one. But it looks like just Scurlock
I think it looks like there's a bit of contact. Michelmore's just come up into Purnell coming out of turn number 1, and that's just unsettled that Illusion car, and Purnell's not been able to save it. He's gone around, and he's just avoided sliding to that gap. He's hit the back of Michelmore instead. Scurlock's done a fantastic job to miss that, I've got to say.
Yeah, he had a very lucky escape there, but watching on board, I was watching that quite closely as well, and it just looked like as they were going around, Purnell just had a little wiggle of the car on the outside, and then Michelmore had a little wiggle of the car on the inside, and they just both lost a little bit of traction together, and it was just it looked like just a simple racing accident, unfortunately, because the cars just looked like they got a little bit unsettled as they're going through the corner, and it's hard to really put anyone at fault there, because they just both were so sort of... It looked like they were both wobbling a little bit going through that corner, and it's just the cars got sort of unsettled as they've sort of got side by side and gone around, unfortunately, and that is a big loss for Michelmore, because he was looking very good for the race win tonight. And
yeah,
that is Michelmore's...
Yeah,
that's Michelmore's first incident of the season as well. So his first incident point of the season, something James was actually talking about last race, is Michelmore has managed to have no incidents this season so far, and unfortunately that is his first.
Yeah, well, all good things must come to an end at some point, unfortunately, and it looks like tonight it has come to an end for Josh Michelmore, and ultimately a racing incident, contact, and around the go. But we'll stack them up, we'll go racing again, and pit stops are just underway now. And they're all
And
coming in to
Dave
get
Douglas
fourth.
makes the same mistake. Sorry, Dave Douglas has made the same mistake twice in a row. He's just overshot his pit box and had to reverse back into it. So again, he's made the same mistake as he did last time round, and he hasn't repaired the damage to the front of the car either.
well, unfortunately for Douglas, he's doesn't look like he's practiced his pit stops tonight, and it's
No,
actually going to be Matthew Clute who's in second place. Edward Foster's climbed up into third place now behind Scurlock.
yeah, he seems to have caught a bit of Jason Martin disease, where he's just overshooting his pit box every time. But speaking of Jason Martin, he has got a little bit of damage to his car as well. He looks like he's got a few battle wounds on that car too, and there are a few cars out there that are looking a little bit second hand so far, and you've got people up the front like Scurlock who got through that incident without sort of touching anything, luckily. Cluett, who's been having a great race so far as well. Actually, he's had a great qualifying, and he's having a good comeback as well these last couple of races. And yeah, so Matthew Cluett has actually got a new rig as well, so that might be helping him quite a lot. And of course, getting some new tech for sim racing is a big advantage sometimes. Just the little things, like you were saying, with dual monitors, things like that, make a huge difference to how well you can race in these cars. And getting that new rig looks like it's really helped Matthew Cluett.
Yeah, it looks like it has. Those sort of things can definitely help. If you're comfortable in the car or in your rig, it definitely translates to being comfortable on track and getting good results. It's something we said in real life when drivers are comfortable, they get in the groove and they just rock it. And it's the same thing in sim racing.
Yes, and as it progresses, technology progresses as well. You get things like the Oculus Rift and all of that kind of stuff. That you're getting so much more available to you, and there's even the silly little things like the wind generating systems where it can actually create a little bit of a fan, so you get some air on the front of your visor to get the feeling of speed. But these are all things that can help in sim racing, and they're all there because sim racing is such a huge industry nowadays. Everybody's testing their cars. Everybody's testing out bits and bobs, testing out information and setups in sim racing these days. And a lot of drivers are honing their skill as well. When they're not racing on the track, they're racing on their sim rigs.
Yeah, you talk about the having the wind on the visor. I go for a different option. I have absolutely no airflow through my room and absolutely no wind whatsoever. So I go for the feel like you sat in a cockpit of a race car in a fire suit because I get very hot when I'm racing.
Yeah, I can understand that. My lovely computer, which generally everybody can hear, it sounds like an aircraft taking off most times. It does produce quite a lot of heat. So on nights where I'm doing the broadcast, I'm generally locked up in my room, and it does get very warm in here very quickly. And the few sim races I have done, it can get so tiring because the heat really can affect you, and it is you get a new sort of a new respect for drivers, because if you've ever raced a car on a track, you sort of understand how hard it is. But in sim racing, when you're racing for those long races, you really understand the mental fatigue that can come from it.
Yeah, people don't really understand sometimes just how fit those real drivers need to be in order to race those cars because just the heat that they get up to in those cars, even the open wheelers, even the open cockpit cars like the F1 cars, you just get so hot and it wears you down mentally and physically. And luckily with sim racing, we don't quite have that. Um,
No, it's a welcome advantage to the real racing. Also, you don't have to
yes.
work on your car as much with sim racing. You're not out there in the middle of the night taking bits apart and fixing things as you go through. Those are the joy of a real racing car. They're expensive beasts, and they generally bring you nothing but misery. But a couple of minutes on track, you do get some fun time. yeah, at least you don't have to go through the whole repair stage with sim racing.
Yeah, and I think there's quite a few guys that are very thankful for that. And while we're rabbiting on about this, the field is coming out of turn 2. They've got to go through turn number 3, and we'll go back racing for the 3rd time today. And it will be Michael Scurlock now in charge of the field.
Yes, and Dave Douglas has actually just jumped into the pit lane again for a third stop, and it does look like I think he's repaired that damage. So he's jumped in to get a fresh set of boots. So not much difference on the tyres, only 2 laps different, but he's just managed to fix that damage too. So we'll have Scurlock taking the lead with Claw on the back on the right hand side of him, and away we go. And green has dropped. Scurlock has gotten away quite well. Foster is dropping back a bit, but Clurt has made a very good start on the outside, and looks like he's going to be pulling down in front of Foster.
Yep, and there's going to be Roger Clark trying to challenge Edward Foster as well as they head down into turn number 1. Not going to be able to do it. Foster's going to clear him and slide into 3rd place, and he will slide up in front of him. He will say, nope, you are not coming back to my outside, and right in behind them, the battle for 6th place is Jason Martin going around the outside of Mirko Dautanac. Going to get a push maybe from Carl Sloggett as well, is going to follow him through, and Dautanac loses 2 spots.
Yeah, Dautanac climbed his way up, but somebody really that is climbing the way up the field at the moment is Foster and Clark. They're doing a great job. Edward Foster's made 9 spots now, and we're talking to him about him in the early stages of the race, just going, he's not usually this sort of slow. Usually he's much higher up in the field, and it looks like he's getting up there now.
Yeah, and here's something interesting to note. Josh Michelmore, he seems to have some pretty decent pace. Despite all that damage to the back of his car, I've just watched him rocket past Dautanac, and he's going to make a move now on is that Carl Sloggett? Yeah, he's going to make a move on Carl Sloggett as well. So maybe, just maybe, Michelmore might be able to find his way back to the front, as Sloggett's going to get one back on him now. This is a good battle for a 7th place at the moment.
Yeah, we've got some good battling back there, and another car that is just trying to battle his way up there as well is Purnell, and a car that looks, frankly, like it's seen better days. He is keeping ahead of his teammates, like his teammate Stephen Williams. Purnell has actually sort of got some relatively okay pace considering all the damage on that car.
That is a bit surprising given how far we saw Sloggett drop once he hit the wall. Maybe that was a confidence thing for Sloggett. But we'll see how far these guys can go, whether this damage sort of hurts their tyres or becomes more prevalent.
Sorry, I can't imagine it's going to help their race at all. They're not going to be... I don't think they're going to be challenging for the win, but then stranger things have happened. But Michael Scurlock has pulled out a fantastic lead. He's 0.5 ahead of Clurt, and they are just rocketing ahead almost about 2 seconds ahead of Foster now, who's sort of making a bit of a pack towards the back with Roger Clark behind him.
And they're 3 wide. They are 3 wide heading to turn number 3. Purnell on the outside, Douglas on the inside, and Carl Sloggett gets shuffled back through the middle. Purnell now moves up into 6th.
Brilliant move there by Douglas. We did just have an illusion car go in the wall. I think that was Stephen Williams. He just went in the wall and just took a big chunk out the front side of his car. So not what he wants to do. But Matthew Clurt is actually doing a fantastic job here. He's keeping about half a second behind Scurlock, because Scurlock's able just to keep that lead. So they're doing very well holding together. But at the back, we've got people like Foster and Clark having a really good race at the moment. Foster's just dropping back. But the person that's rocketing forward with the back of the car, yeah. I think he's got an unfair advantage with the fact he's got a new aero package on that car. It seems like the low downforce pack is working for him.
Well, he has no rear bumper. And if our cast your minds back to Bristol in the real world NASCAR series, where Kyle Busch, he lost his rear bumper at Bristol this year. He might have been last year. He came from the back to the front with no rear bumper. So maybe these Cup cars just seem to work better without that piece of unnecessary body.
A bit of unnecessary modification of the car, yeah. There were rumours back in the 70s and 80s that certain cars and car designers were designing bits of the car that could fall off with ease and increase the speed of the vehicle while keeping them within the regulations. So it's not that surprising that sometimes losing that rear bumper might cause a bit of extra speed for you, because what it's done effectively is it's made the car have a lot less downforce, which is making the car a lot faster.
It certainly looks that way, but at the moment we've got 7 or 8 cars. You could almost throw a blanket over them. As Douglas going to go through the middle, 3 wide again, down the front straight, and he's going to move past Edward Foster and try and go up the inside of Roger.
And he's got up through the inside of Roger Clark, and Josh Michelmore just coming down and just swiping in front of his nose, making sure he can't do the move on him, because Dave Douglas still looks like he's got some decent speed in that car. So maybe we wrote off for Josh Michelmore a bit too quickly, because he is definitely doing well. But just to cast our eyes back to the front
Oh,
of the field,
no, let's not. Carl Sloggett. He's gone sideways into turn number 2, and he has saved it. That is a very, very good save for Carl Sloggett.
what a save there. That was a... I saw that very, very distant sort of thing. But just up the front, we've got Matthew Cluett, Kai Sloggett's teammate, actually starting to get right onto the back of Scurlock and really putting some pressure on Scurlock, who Michael Scurlock has actually set the fastest time of the race so far, and it is by some margin as well. He's set a 52.09, while everybody else is sort of about a tenth or two off of that pace. So Scurlock has definitely got some good pace at the moment.
He's got some good pace, but I'll tell you who has better pace. It's Matthew Cluett. To the front goes the MFR Racing man. Can he hold it?
Cluett has got some serious speed at the moment, and he's been racing well all night. He's qualified well, remember. He qualified up in 4th place, I believe it was. And himself and Scurlock have been running extremely well, but they were just that little bit slower than Douglas and Michelmore. But with seemingly with those out of the picture, although Michelmore is doing his best to make us eat those words, these two might be able to pull ahead and get some good points on the board.
Well, you might want to give us a bit of an update there, Carl, because I can't do it. On what the lap times are, comparison to those top 3 guys, because Matthew Cluett, Michael Scurlock, and Josh Michelmore is a long way back from those guys, but I think he's just maybe going to start closing in on them. We'll see.
Well, I'm just going to wait for him to cross the line one more time before I start looking at the laps, but the front runners are setting a pretty consistent 53.8 at second lap, while Michelmore is sort of setting around the same lap time. Everybody's very close at the moment in their actual lap speed. The only car that is sort of going quite well at the moment is Mirko Dautanac, but look as they cross the line. So Michelmore is only about, he's only a tiny bit off himself and Dave Douglas, just a tenth off the front runners in ultimate pace. So they're all setting similar lap times at the moment. And considering the amount of damage on some of those cars, it really doesn't appear to be affecting them too much for the speed.
Well, that's a surprise, but hey, it should give us a good race. If Michelmore can get back up there with that damage, and Purnell certainly hanging on pretty well as well. He's currently just sat in behind Roger Clark and Edward Foster, who were side by side. Foster's just completed the move, and now Purnell's going to try and go to his inside. And Jason Martin's back going, where can I go?
It does look like Martin is just going to try his best to get in there. Just at the back though, I just caught in the corner of my eye, Gareth Anderson's had a big moment and gone into the pits. He looks like his race is over. But the race from 5th down is really heating up. Dave Douglas in the Blokes Advice Racing team and Edward Foster as well in Blokes Advice are sort of... Dave Douglas is really pulling away, and he's got a really good margin ahead of his teammate Edward Foster. But behind him, we've got Chris Purnell, who is seemingly the fastest car out of this back pack, and seeming to be faster than people like Jason Martin, and that's something to do, and especially when your car looks like a dog's dinner like that.
I think Michelmore and Chris Purnell have employed some sort of wizardry in their pit garages because those guys should not be running that well with that tank.
No, they've obviously got out the 100 mph tape and basically just slapped as much of that on the car, and it seems to be working. So it does look like the magical duct tape is doing the job, and they're doing quite well. But yeah, Josh Micklemore's pace is he's pretty much on pace with everybody around him. Dave Douglas is currently the fastest of that top four. Dave Douglas is currently the fastest man out there actually on these last couple of laps. So it seems the best way to get around this track is with damage.
Well, you say that, but I am wondering, Jason Martin, I just noticed something very interesting. He just went to make a move on Roger Clark. He had a run coming off of turn 1 by the looks of it. He pulled down to his inside and promptly went backwards. Almost got passed by Mirko Dautanac. And if you look at his car, he has got a bit of damage on that right front, and it looks like he might be being hampered by it.
Yeah, Jason actually, he went into the wall earlier on, I think, in the session, as well as Stephen Williams. But himself, Mirko Dautanac, pretty much all the cars running from about 5th onwards are pretty heavily damaged, other than Roger Clark. Everybody else has got some serious damage on their car. Edward Foster and Roger Clark seem to be the only two that don't have huge amounts of their car missing. But the draft is really affecting them, as you say, and especially with these damaged cars, as soon as they're getting out from behind the car in front of them, they're dropping off quite a lot. And now we're getting some green flag laps. There's some real gaps starting to form between the field.
Yeah, there are some gaps on the field, and I think there's a lot of people damage out there. Two cars that are completely clean, though, are Matthew Clute and Michael Scurlock. Not a paint, not a hint of any paint going anywhere other than where it should be on those two cars. That didn't sound right, but oh well. And Michael Scurlock is actually getting quite close to the back of Matty Clute now.
Yeah, Scurlock is doing
might be able to see another
job.
move here. Maybe down into turn 2.
Yeah, Scurlock has just been putting pressure on Clute and just making him really have to run a more defensive line. And what this is doing is it's letting Michelmore and Douglas catch up to them. These guys are just having to go into that defensive line to try and keep each other behind one another. And they are starting to lose pace on the cars behind them. The cars behind them are setting times about 2 to 3 tenths faster than the cars in front of them. So they are catching by about a tenth or two a lap. So they will get up there very shortly.
And I would imagine if this goes green to the end, but they will have to pit again, won't they?
I believe so, yeah. I don't think anyone would be able to make it to the end on tyres alone. I've actually not been keeping track of the laps myself. I've been so invested in the racing so far. But we are on lap 36 now. So yeah, it's been going pretty quickly, this one. A lot of action has happened in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, it's been quite an exciting race with just a 14-car field. It's been pretty good so far. It just cooled down for a few laps there, but it looks like at the moment, with this battle for the lead starting to brew, we could have another big battle on our hands with these other guys catching up.
Yeah, once these guys start catching up, we're going to start seeing some big battles happening. As soon as they get in the draft of the front cars as well, they're just going to start catching quicker and quicker and quicker. One thing I have noticed with Scurlock, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but it may look like he is having just a little bit of connectivity issue. He is blinking quite a bit through some corners, so I hope that does not continue to be a problem for him. Because I'd like to see this race go as it is, because Scurlock's been having a fantastic run this evening, and for something like a technical difficulty is causing problems, I don't want to see that.
Yes, the joys of Australian internet. They're very reliable, isn't it?
Yes,
but
the
I think
old
he'll stay connected. I'm hoping he'll stay connected. Maybe go on board with Michael Scurlock here, and we'll just see how he's riding this. Track, how much he's having to jump off the throttle.
Yeah, he seems to be really struggling a bit, so we'll go on board with him if we can.
And see just how much he's closing in, closing on Clute, and just a bit of a lift there from Scurlock, that was. maybe just trying to hang back, is he? Maybe he's trying to save a bit of fuel.
Yeah, I do wonder because there's been a few opportunities for Scurlock to actually get past Bullet, and it does look like maybe Scurlock's just trying to save on tyres and fuel a little bit, maybe to try and wean it out just in case we do get green all the way. As I say, we're only on lap 38, so we're not even halfway through this race yet. So we still have another 42 laps to go, 41 now. But we still have a long way to go. There is so much more to do in this race. We've already had 2 pit stops under caution. A couple of cars have actually done 3 pit stops, like Dave Douglas. The tyres are now getting towards 20 laps old as well. And everybody was saying once these tyres starting to get the age in, the cars are getting a lot worse to drive around on. They're really struggling for grip. And this could be the real big thing for them, is if we start getting to a point where the rubber starts going off, we're going to see cars really struggling out there, and just really struggling to keep the car tight around the corner, and we might see some more cars going to the fence.
Yeah, what you see with Scurlock is he's backing up the corners and he's accelerating through them to get the run onto the straight. He's got a huge run here. Will he go past him? Yes, he will. Down the inside, he might even clear him by the time he gets into turn number 1.
And he has.
And in fact, he will.
What a
So
beautiful
that's
move.
a very good run from Scar. He set that one up by backing up that turn 3 entry, got the run through, and was able to breeze by him in the end.
That was an absolutely fantastic move by Scurlock. He looks like he was just lining that move up for the last few laps. He's just been waiting for his moment. And down the back, we've actually got Edward Foster now pulling out in front of Dave Douglas. Those two have been running pretty close together, but they're just behind Josh Michelmore, who still seems to have the pace on a very fresh-looking car. So both Douglas and Foster, their cars are looking relatively clean compared to the rest. Dave Douglas still does have that damage to the right front, but not much compared to some of the other cars around him. And they're starting to try and catch on Josh Michelmore, who has made up an amazing amount of time. He has really gained some time on the leaders. He's only 1.7 seconds down now on the leading couple, on Michael Scurlock. And to come back from that accident and to keep up this pace, it is showing a real good class of driver.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to see that these 3 are really catching them. No one else seems to be doing that quite as much. As we just see a move further back now, Roger Clark and Stephen Williams going to go side by side. That's going to get completed pretty easily from Williams. But yeah, these 3 are doing quite a good job now to catch up to the back of Clute and Scurlock, who has not really managed to pull away from Manny Clute. So that draft really keeping these guys quite tight at the front. But yeah, I'm interested to see how these guys will play it when they catch up to them.
Yeah, definitely. As soon as you pull out of that slipstream, you are losing quite a lot of pace. Another guy just to mention as well, just with huge amounts of damage, is Purnell, who's sitting down in 6th at the moment. What an absolute, what a drive from him he's having at the moment. From himself and Josh Michelmore, really, it looks like they were out of this race completely. And to be driving around with these cars so damaged, they must be struggling as they're getting through the corners. But they're doing a great job.
They certainly are, but Edward Foster's getting a bit impatient trying to go down the inside of Josh Michelmore through turn number 2. Not going to be able to complete it. Michelmore's going to get the run off the corner, and this might open the door for Dave Douglas on Foster. No, he's just going to sit in behind him.
Yeah, I do wonder if those 2 cars are going to start working together now a little bit. The Blokes Advice Racing, Riley Curtis designed cars of Foster and Douglas. Let's see if they work together a little bit, try and get past Michelmore. But it's the thing of Michelmore's got the pace at the moment. He's still setting lap times that are just a little bit slower than the cars in front of them. He's not that far off the pace, off the leaders. In fact, he is faster than Scurlock on the last couple of laps. So it's just an impressive drive, really.
And it looks like they did just lose a little bit of time on that lap. Probably a product of them going side by side. And Scurlock is just eking out the gap a bit to Matthew Clute. He's just starting to pull away from him. And I wonder if Clute might be considering the possibility of an undercut here. He hit a lap or 2 earlier. And certainly with a 4/10 of a second gap, I think he would definitely jump ahead of Scurlock.
We've got a battle down at the back as well with Jason Martin, Roger Clark, Dautanac, and I think Norman Clark as well is getting in there as well. and all these cars are just dicing for position, changing position at each and every corner. They're really having a race, and Roger Clark is dropping back quite a lot. Considering Roger Clark's car is so clean as well, I don't know why he's dropping back so much. He looks like he's really struggling for pace out there. He's currently sitting down there in last place, in 11th place now. So yeah, he looks like he's struggling for a bit of pace down there.
Yeah, well, maybe he's gone to the same school as me for the same school of tire life because he's really struggling there, and it's something that I've struggled a lot with as well as my tire wear. And maybe Roger Clark's just done it here too. He's used up his tires a bit too much, and these other guys have just saved a bit, and now he's paying the price.
Well, these Cup cars are very different to drive with their tyre life. Their tyre wear is very can be quite harsh because of the downforce of these cars. Um, Downforce can equal quite a lot of tyre wear sometimes, and it does seem a lot of drivers are struggling just to get that right balance between speed and tyre life. A few drivers have got it absolutely nailed, and a few drivers still look like they're trying to get it set up. But Edward Foster is going down the inside of Michelmore now, and he's just holding that inside line, and oh, very close there for Foster and Michelmore. He just barely just keeping away from them. There would have been a cigarette paper between the two of them there. I don't know if there's a little bit of paintwork rubbed onto Micklemore's car, but very close there between the two. But it looks like Foster has made the move stick and is just getting in front of Josh
Yeah,
Michelmore.
but now Michelmore is going to give a little bit of a shot to the back of Foster in the middle of the corner. I thought he might have been able to get back up the inside with a run, but just a bit too eager there. Got into the back of Foster and killed any momentum he might have had. But looks like he might have a good run. Nah, he's going to run a bit too wide. He's going to shout back out to the throttle a bit, so we're getting to that warn. That's going to mean Foster's safe for now. And maybe just give him some time to try and open up a gap and get closer. As Dave Douglas is going to get closer and closer to Michelmore. He's not going to be able to make the move into turn number 1, I don't think. And no, he can't. Michelmore charges in there very deep.
Yeah, very hard defence there for Michelmore. He really did put a strong defence there, chopping off the front of Douglas's car. But
it's not worked too well for him though, because he's going to lose a lot of speed out of turn number 1. And here comes Douglas.
And Douglas is sitting right on the back of that car,
yep.
And he's just going to ease off a little bit, maybe going into the corner and just try and get the run on the outside of the corner. So let's see if he can get the car to stick and get some drive going out. But it looks like he's lost a bit of pace, and he just had to lift off there, and he's fallen away from Michelmore.
I've seen that a couple of times tonight. Guys are getting big runs from the person in front of them, but they're not doing anything with them. And that could certainly just be a case of just trying to save a bit of fuel and try and go a bit longer in this run if they can, or work a bit of fuel.
Dave Douglas has actually jumped to the pit lane. So Dave Douglas is pitting, so he's the first of the green flag pit stops to happen. So obviously this is going to be where people are going to start looking at pitting, because it's getting towards the end of tyre life. Obviously he wasn't going to get past Michelmore, he must have been thinking, so he's just going to just jump in the pit lane, and let's see, he stops. Looked like he had to just tap it and reverse a little bit then again.
Well, he's made his marks for once.
Yeah.
I don't think that cost him any time there. And now this could trigger a round of pit stops where everyone's going to have to react to Dave Douglas, because if this tyre wear is significant, he could get a very big advantage if no one else.
He could get the undercut here, and it looks like Foster's coming in as well. So Edward Foster's pitting, his teammate's pitting in on the very next lap. So I reckon we're going to get a bit of an influx of cars coming in, and it looks like I think Roger Clark as well is pitting as well. So Roger Clark's stopping as well. So Scurlock is still in the lead with Clerk behind him. Those two are still setting some relatively decent pace. And with the little battle that Josh Michelmore was having with Foster and Douglas, it has cost him a bit of time, and he's dropped around about 2 seconds since he was gaining. So it'll be interesting now to see who stays out, tries to go long, and tries to get a better end to their race on those slightly fresher tyres.
Yeah, and it looks like just coming out of the pits now is Edward Foster. Where is Dave Douglas? Has he managed to make any inroads on him?
Dave Douglas is just coming.
He's just entering
through turn 1 now.
We'll see what sort of run he gets off of turn number 1. He's going to have more speed than Edward Foster will. And remember, Foster was ahead of Douglas before these pit stops by probably about the same amount he is now. So it looks like pretty even there for Douglas and Foster in terms of that gap. So he's reacting.
Yeah, Oh, sorry, they didn't lose much time between each other, but Douglas did definitely gain. Douglas has gained maybe about 2 or 3
And
car lengths with that pit stop.
and now we've got 2 illusion cars in the pits. Mirko Dautanac and Chris Purnell have both dived in.
Yeah, so the very second-hand looking car of Chris Purnell, I don't think he's going to get much money for that after the race, but it is still going, and it's still going relatively quickly. But it'll be interesting to see where these guys come out, because Foster and Douglas, of course, were ahead of those guys, and Dave Douglas is actually passing Foster as we speak. So Edward Foster has just got a, looks like he just got a little bit out of his line,
Scurlock's
went
in.
through.
Scurlock is in pit lane, so he's reacting to all these pit stops happening around him now. And we'll see where he comes out. We'll see if Edward Foster and Dave Douglas have managed to make any inroads on this lead. And I think
Yes.
they might have, especially with it looked like Foster pretty much just let his teammate go by him there, probably recognising that he had a lot more pace and that he might have a shot at getting quite close to this.
Yes, well, Dave Douglas has actually just set the fastest lap. So Dave Douglas set the fastest lap on his out lap. His last lap was a good 3 seconds faster than the leaders were running. So yeah,
Well, look at
those
that
tyres are
gap.
definitely making some help.
Michael Scurlock, he's still in pit lane. Michael Scurlock, he's just leaving the pit box now, but he's lost an absolute ton of time. He's going to come out way behind even Chris Purnell and Mirko Dautanac.
And Clerk is
He's just
pitting
coming
as well.
into turn number 1 now, and Dave Douglas is just entering turn number 2. That's a huge loss there for Michael Scurlock.
I wonder if he maybe got pinged for speeding in the pits, or if he got some form of infringement. Because yeah, that was a very long stop.
And Clute's in now, so once this pit stop phase has sorted itself out, I'll go have a look back at Scurlock's pit stop and see if I can see if I can see any speed differences that might have infringed a penalty on him. As Clute's going to come out of his pit box now, and he's going to get jumped by Dave Douglas as well, and Edward Foster. So,
And
the
by
Riley
some
Curtis Design
margin.
boys have worked a very good strategy in here.
Yeah.
And, yep, Clute's going to have to work to get this lead back.
It does look like that has really worked in their favour. We've still got Josh Michelmore leading. A thing that I did not think I'd be saying a bit earlier in this race, when his back of his car was missing most of its parts. But he's running at around about 3 seconds slower, 2 to 3 seconds slower than Dave Douglas and Foster at the moment. So he is just hemorrhaging lap time at the moment. But himself, Stephen Williams and Jason Martin have stayed out on track, as well as Norman Clark. So maybe they're going to try for that longer strategy. Just try and run out there a little bit longer, get an extra 10 laps on these tyres, come out on much fresher rubber, and then gain the advantage back towards the end of the race. Very
Maybe
dangerous.
pray for a caution.
Sorry, I missed that, Ryan.
And maybe they could pray for a caution as well. Maybe they're just trying to stay out there and hope they can get a caution in, get a lucky break. But I think they're going to be losing way too much time by staying out.
And Michelmore pits now. So Michelmore's coming into the pits now. But it looks like Stephen Williams has stayed out, so he's going to pick up the lead. With Jason Martin behind him and Norman Clark as well. So, yeah, they must be praying for a caution to come out. Or we could see last race with Danson and Martin. Matt Danson pitted a lot later than Martin, and it looked like it was a real big mistake. But he did gain a lot of time. He still ended up losing the race, but that later pit stop didn't work out too poorly for him. So maybe people are thinking back to a few races ago, just how the tyres went off at the end of the last few last few laps of the race, and how much speed those people were gaining.
Yes, exactly. And we just go back to Michael Scurlock's pit stop. Well, he's definitely got pinged for speeding. The speed limit here, 89 kilometers an hour, and when Scurlock crossed that pit entry line, he was doing 120.
A little bit of speeding there, yeah, just a tiny bit. So not surprised he got pinged for that one. So we are on lap 54 now. So we still got a lot of race to go. This race feels like it is just. It feels like it should have been over about, almost 20 minutes ago. It feels like it's been a bit of a long race, but not in a boring way. There's been so much happening so early on in this race.
Yeah.
We've just had so much going on, and it's good to see in such a small field we're still having the drama happening, and that's what we want to have happen in this series.
Yeah, and it's still going on because now Edward Foster has found his way back past Dave Douglas. So that'll be the provisional lead of the race once these 3 guys in front of them peel off. Williams, Martin, and Clark. It looks like Michelmore has made his pit.
And it looks like they are pitting now. So Stephen Williams is staying out, but Jason Martin and Norman Clark are both entering the pits now. And they've really just lost an awful lot of time. They're going to come out quite far behind the rest of that pack. Maybe they're hoping for a sort of a caution to come out. Maybe they were just praying for that and they just can't keep out any longer, or maybe they were just trying something different on their strategy. We'll see how that plays out later in the race. But Stephen Williams still leads the race for the moment, so he's picking up a bonus point for the lead of the race, of course. But Edward Foster sits behind him, lapping almost 2 seconds a lap faster than the leader at the moment. And Williams just makes contact with the wall. Stephen Williams just made a bit of contact with the wall going through turn 3, I think. And he is pitting.
Oh, that piss off from Williams is going to release Edward Foster and Dave Douglas into the actual lead of the race.
And
that will confirm
Foster
what
has
he's known
quite
for
a
a while
lead.
now. Quite a lead, yeah. Well, it's going to
He's
confirm what we've known for a little while now, that these guys have played a really good strategy. But as I say that, Matthew Clute, he's found his way back past Dave Douglas, and he's honing in on the back of Edward Foster now.
Yes, so Clute has got sort of tyres that are about five laps younger than Dave Douglas and Ed Foster. So his tyres are a lot younger than those two. Not by much, but it can make a bit of difference because there's that little bit of extra rubber on top of it, and it just keeps that gripping a little bit longer. He's managed to keep in the draft as well. But you have to wonder how much more of a lead would Clute have had if he pitted earlier.
Yeah, well, he's made the bed now. He's gone for the strategy, and it looks like it's going to work for him either way. He was 6/10 quicker than Foster on that last lap, and I expect he'll get by Foster pretty quickly here, and maybe to start to drive away from him a bit with that fresher tyre wear. But I think the biggest loser out of all this is undoubtedly Michael Scurlock, who is he's running back in 8th place at the moment.
And he's running behind his teammate of Chris Purnell, who's back with Josh Michelmore now. Josh Michelmore is making a pass on Chris Purnell, going underneath him. Let's hope that this pass comes out clean and we don't get a repeat of last time.
Looks like they're giving exactly the same positions, but yeah, Purnell's backed out of it this time.
Giving them quite a lot of room. I think they both know how much room they need, so they've given themselves a good bit of spacing. But Scurlock's just behind them, catching at relatively decent pace, but it has really hampered his race. He is really suffering for that. A guy that's also just not having a great run out there now is Roger Clark. He seems a bit off the pace at the moment, and he's struggling a little bit still with that car. No apparent damage to it, but he just seems to be sort of not quite in the rhythm. Maybe he's just not quite settling on this track. But up at the front, we've got Clute just getting onto the back of Foster's bumper, and he is closing quite quickly. He's he's a 10th off now, and he is right on the back of Foster's bumper, and Edward just positioning his car as much as he can.
Oh, it's going to be contact! Well, Edward Foster throwing the block there down the back straight, and Matthew Clute, I don't think he's going to be too happy about that. He might give a little bump to the back of Foster next time he gets there to say, hey, you can't do that, mate.
Well, Foster gave him absolutely no room going down that back straight, and Clute just drove underneath the line a little bit, trying to get through, and it wasn't going to work. One of them had to lift off, and I don't think either of these guys is in the mindset of lifting at the moment. So, good job for actually holding on for Clute, but that is a little bit of damage to the front of his car that he wouldn't have wanted, and probably a little bit of damage to the rear end of Foster's car that he wouldn't have wanted.
Yeah, I think these guys, Edward Foster, I realises here that this is for the lead of the race, and this could very well decide who wins this race if we go green from here. And so he wants this win.
Foster is extremely hungry for a win. Edward Foster, of course, he's the runner-up in last year's championship. He didn't have a win all season. He was very consistent, but he hasn't gotten that sort of maiden win yet, and I know that he's going to be very hungry for it. So he's really going to try hard, and he is really going to position that car. It's going to be the widest Cup car on the track for the next few laps.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, Pocono's a very wide track, so gonna have to
Yeah,
be very, very creative here to keep Clute behind him, especially with his fresher tires.
yes, and Clut's got some speed, but he's maybe a bit of a misplay there. He just shot it down the inside, maybe trying to make Foster cut in a little bit early for the corner and compromise his exit speed. Um, but he went down very early then, trying to sort of maybe make Foster jump down to the inside line. Foster kept his line, but Clute is gaining again. He's really got back in the draft right here, and they are almost nose to tail right now. There's not much between these two cars as they're travelling down the road at a good 170, 180 miles per hour. So, about 280, isn't it, kilometers, I think.
Yeah, about 280, 290 back at the end of turn 1 here in the draft for Matthew Clute. It's about what he'll get up to.
So really helping Clute out, and it's that those younger tyres are going to be something that he's going to want to try and preserve. But every time he's running behind Foster, those tyres are going to be getting a little bit more worn, and Clute's going, oh, really close there. He really went for the dive there, but Foster just positioned his car masterfully and just cut Clute off, made sure he couldn't get past. Really good defensive driving there, and Clute is just going to get sort of hungrier and hungrier for this, trying to get this win as well. These two drivers are both very much wanting to get a win in this season, and they know that this race could be it.
Yeah, and I think both these guys will know that this could be their biggest opportunity of the entire year. Matt Danson's not up there. Jason Martin's, he's in trouble this race. He's way back in 8th place. He's not going to win it from there, I don't think. And all those normal big names aren't at the front, and it's a very big opportunity. And I wonder how long these guys will keep running like this before one of them decides to get the bumper out.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. And well, this season, as I said, we've only had one repeat winner, which is Danson. We've had so many different victors this season. It's not been a predictable season, but with these very top scorers like your Martin down towards the back, Michelmore not sitting quite as high up. He's still in 4th place though, mind you. So not bad job for Michelmore at all. Not a bad recovery drive whatsoever, considering he's missing the back half of that car. But the big point scorers are sort of missing from this race, and it could be a very helpful dose of points for these drivers. And it's not often
There's
you're
a
going to...
caution.
Oh, we got a caution.
It's Mirko Dautanac. Dautanac is sideways.
Big off for Mirko Dautanac back there. One of the winners from this season as well, Mirko Dautanac, of course. But a big off there, and that car does not look like it's going to be going much further in this race. It looks like it's going to have a long repair time, but this is going to, of course, mean everybody's going to jump in the pits, get some new tyres, and close everybody up as well.
So everything we just said about how this race could play out, throw it out the window, because we're going to stack them up and we're going to go again for a little dash to the end.
Yes.
Look at Dautanac though. Looks like he got out of turn number 2, ran a bit too high, got into that wall, and it's flipped him back down to the inside, spun him out. Hard contact with that inside wall. It's actually kind of all the way back up the track, and Scurlock. Yeah, that was very close for Michael Scurlock, in fact. Again.
Scurlock seems to have 9 lives tonight. He's definitely got the luck of a cat tonight. He's missing those big crashes by a couple of millimeters, and his car is still very clean as well. Scurlock's car still looks relatively new and fresh.
It certainly does, and I think this is going to shape up to be an absolute grandstand finish, because Michael Scurlock, he's going to have a chance to win this race again. He's going to be restarting from well, I won't get ahead of myself. They're going to make their pit stops yet, but it's still going to be a grandstand finish. A lot of guys with a chance to win this race, all very close.
We're going to be looking at about a 15 laps dash to the end, so a mad dash to the end. So everybody's going to come in, chuck some tyres on the car. I wonder if anybody will take a gamble and try and just sort of go for one, left or right side tyres, trying to get that track position. It's going to be very interesting here. So if everybody can
Jason Martin, who are those guys that pitted very late on in that green flag run? Jason Martin, Stephen Williams, maybe they could take a gamble. It's just 2 right side tyres.
And it could give them that sort of little bit of extra time just on pit stop, just to get out ahead of these the drivers that are in front. So Foster is definitely taking 2 tyres. Um, just having a look, and looks like Martin's taking a full service as well. So
It's going to be Edward Foster just beating Dave Douglas. Matthew Clute third coming out of pit.
and that is a real good bit of news for Blokes Advice Racing, who tend to do very well at the last stages of these sort of fast 2.5 mile speedways. You know, think back to Daytona last year, where Dave Douglas got that fantastic win with Riley Curtis' design team getting, I think it was a 1-2-3. They tend to do very well on these speedways, and they can work well together. So we'll have to see if that's what happens with this race. But it's too close to call. We've got Josh Michelmore back up there in 4th place. Chris Purnell in 6th place. Still ahead of Scurlock, who Scurlock. If Purnell could switch cars with Scurlock, I think he'd be very happy right now, because Scurlock's car looks much better than his. Jason Martin is still sort of nowhere at the moment. He's 7th place. He's sort of just. He's been having one of those runs tonight where he's sort of just not really been not looking like he's had the pace. It just looks like he's just been struggling all night, and a bit of an off night for him.
Yeah, we keep talking about him, don't we? Because we just expect him to suddenly get back up there, because he's just that sort of driver, and it's certainly a shock when he's not up there. But, well, it opens up someone else, and it's going to be exciting to see who can take that opportunity to.
Well, it will be great to have another driver for the winning box this season, because it's just we've had such much diversity this season, and some of the greatest seasons in motorsport is when it's unpredictable, when you have races where you have those drivers that you know are going to be up there, but you're having different winners in every race. And so far this season, we've been sort of having that, and tonight could be another one of those nights where we get a different winner for the championship, and it would be nice to see that. But Josh Michelmore is going to do his best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, everyone loves a close championship. I mean, obviously, we look at F1 and we know what's going to happen at Monaco. Mercedes are going to win. But then we look
Yes,
at
it's
Formula E. Formula E not got quite as big of a following, but I believe it was 8 different winners from that first 8 races of that season. So it's certainly beneficial to have close racing, and we all love to see it.
yeah.
So it's
And
good that we got it again tonight.
if you are a fan of those open wheelers, I'd recommend watching the support races for Formula One. The F2 races are usually pretty hectic, and they're pretty special to watch sometimes, because unfortunately F1 can be a bit of a bore sometimes. But this, of course, isn't F1. This is oval racing, where anything can happen and will happen, and you will get some very, very close racing, which we have been all night. Um, Michael Scurlock down there is he still holds the fastest lap of this race. So he's got a car underneath him that can go. He's got a car that actually, if he set the time that he set in this race, he would have actually qualified on pole, I believe. So he's doing pretty well so far in the race. But he's not in the track position, so he's just got to try and get up there and get back into that track position.
Yeah, well, that fastest lap could have been aided by being in the draft as well. Let's not forget that.
Of course.
But let's also remember Edward Foster. He threw that block on Matthew Clute, and I'm interested to see how much more blocking it gets dissuaded by these drivers now off this restart. Certainly, I expect these front two to get out initially off the start, because I think they'll work together here and get a good launch together and stop anyone else from getting in between them. But after that, I think it's going to be gloves off.
Yeah, it could well be. Look, Dave Douglas still owes Foster a win. So Dave could be working as a teammate here, but they do like to race. The pace car's going to be coming in a couple of moments, and Foster's going to be leading the way. And having your teammate next to you is always an advantage, because you can say when you're going to drop the hammer, you can say when you're going to accelerate, and you can both do it at the same time. We could see these guys starting to run off a little bit early if they can manage to get a little bit of updrafting going.
Yeah, 3 of those top 5 cars have got damage, so that's an interesting fact to point out. Obviously, Michelmore and Purnell very well documented how much damage they have, and also Dave Douglas, a little touch on the wall he had earlier on. Edward
Yes.
Foster and Matty Clute. They've got perfectly clean cars.
Well, Clute's got a little bit of damage on the front right now from his
Who
little tap
does?
with Foster. So yeah, it's not as clean as it once was, but it's still much cleaner than a lot of other cars up there.
Well, that's just a product of Oval Racing, unfortunately. Anything that sort of goes in Oval Racing up to a limit.
Well, it's
that's
touring
what we
car
love.
racing, and you know, like, a bit of paint scraping is what you need in touring car racing. You've got to not be afraid of getting your arms out, getting just rubbing with each other. But the pace car's going to come in, and we are going to be going back to green any second now, and he's backing him up, backing the field up, and away he goes. He's dropped the pedal now, and Dave Douglas.
Not go with him.
No, Dave Douglas.
He's going to throw the block on Clute. Clute's going to try and go down to the inside. While they're doing that, Michelmore is going to get round to the outside of them. They're going to go 3 wide for second place, off into turn number 1. Who will come out in front? Hopefully they make it out the other side. Douglas holding on through the middle, around the outside of Matty Clute. He's going to hold on to that second place. A great piece of driving there from Doug. And now Clute's going to come under pressure from Josh Michelmore, who's getting bump drafted by Michael Scurlock, who's trying to make something work. And Clute's going to go from 3rd all the way back to P number 6.
Not a great restart there for Clute, but a great restart there for the Blokes Advice Riley Curtis design team. They did their job perfectly, but we've got Josh Michelmore there, who is really, really hungry for this race win. His car may look like it's missing pretty much most of its components, but he is still fast. And we've got
Scurlock is coming back.
Scurlock, yeah, Michael Scurlock as well coming up now, and his car is not bad looking. It's pretty clean.
Douglas sort of look to the inside of Foster. He can't quite get there. Looks like he just got a bit of a shot, a bit of extra speed when Scurlock got to his back bumper now. But I expect Scurlock's going to make this move pretty quickly. And then get onto the back of Edward Foster. See if Douglas can play rear gunner here for his teammate and just try and hold him off for as long as...
And it does look like that's what he's doing. Douglas just positioned his car, and Scurlock's had to lift through the corner, which has just given Josh Michelmore the opportunity to get past him. So Josh Michelmore is back, almost back in front of Scurlock.
Yeah, they're going to go side by side here, and with this package, it's just they're side by side for the lead of the race. The teammates throwing blocks down the front straight. Douglas going to get to the inside, and they're all the way on the inside of the track.
Dave Douglas is holding that position and forced Foster up to go high, and this has really cost Foster his lead right now.
He's going to get a run off of turn number 1. He's going to get back to his inside, and now these 3rd and 4th place guys should catch him. Scurlock is in 3rd place, by the way, and they're going to go side by side to turn number 2 now, who's going to come out in front coming off this corner. I expect it will be Edward Foster, but Douglas is going to try and hold it on his door. He's going to hold on so far.
What a hold by Dave Douglas. Managed to hold that car going around the outside. Really good driving there, and Foster as well down the inside, just touching the inside line of the corners, and just costing himself a little bit of speed there.
They Douglas... do, and Michelmore and Scurlock need to sort themselves out, because they're still side by side, and they're not catching them as a result. They're wasting a big opportunity here to catch these front runners.
And they're missing a lot of opportunities. There's only 10 laps to go now, and it does look like Douglas has managed to just pull out in front of Foster and get that lead perfectly in there. And he's trying to break the run, but Foster's got a much better run off the first corner this time, and he is really catching on Douglas now. He's going to try and get down the inside. Inside he goes. Douglas is caught on the outside, and Foster is pushing him up track.
Oh, there's going to be contact between the teammates, and Douglas saves it.
What a save by Douglas! That was one heck of a save.
And now look out, Michael Scurlock and Josh Michelmore. Matty Clute's going to come in there as well. And Foster now is going to come under pressure from Michael Scurlock.
That was that was one of those moments where your heart jumped up through your throat. That was a real amazing save by Douglas. What a fantastic save! But almost costing each other the race there, the teammates. But Douglas has held on to it, and he's back trying to fight up. He's just back behind Clute, who's not going to be wanting to give him an opportunity to get past after the restart situation. Meanwhile, we got Michael Scurlock battling with Josh Michelmore for 2nd and 3rd place. Clute is coming up down the inside though and pushing his way up. Clute is trying his best to get up into 3rd place. He's down the inside of Michelmore, and is just giving Scurlock a little opportunity to pull away now. But those two are fighting hard as they can. And meanwhile, with all this fighting, it's just giving Edward Foster the chance to pull away a bit.
It has, and he needs to be pumping out qualifying laps right now to try and open up this gap while these guys battle. Scurlock as well. We'll see what these front two can do now, because they're out in clean air. As they go side by side, still for third place. It's a big battle for fourth place with Dave Douglas, Jason Martin, Norman Clarkson there, and Chris Purnell.
There are cars everywhere, and there is battling everywhere. Nobody is a lap down, and all these cars are on the same lap, by the way. We have got all the cars in the fight on the same lap. Every car you see is currently racing for position. Matthew Clerk just getting stuck down on the inside, and he's lost a lot of speed, and Dave Douglas has managed to get through past him, and now Douglas is chasing Josh Michelmore, looking at the back of that very broken car. Meanwhile, we've got Scurlock ahead, who is putting in some fantastic times, but Edward Foster is pumping in those qualifying laps. He was half a second faster that last lap than Michael Scurlock. He is really pushing it to the max, and I think Scurlock is the only car now with no damage. I'm just trying to look, and it does look like Scurlock is the only car with no damage, with a little wrinkle to the front of Edward Foster's car. Not a huge amount of damage, but it's still there.
And the last lap times for those front two, Edward Foster a 52.995 and Scurlock a 52.966. They are so evenly matched, but there's 7 tenths between them.
Yeah, that is just, there is nothing in that, and Scurlock is going to need to go faster than that to catch up, and he's going to need Foster to get a little bit slower. Some fantastic racing here, and you can just see on live timing, with just watching to my sort of live timing feed, Scurlock is just gaining a couple of tenths and losing a couple of tenths each corner. He's just got a little bit of a better run through some corners than Foster, and he's starting to close up. As soon as he gets into that slipstream, he's going to close up onto the back of Foster.
Well, he was a tenth and a half. It was about a tenth slower on that lap, so Foster's just doing all he needs to do at the moment, and very quickly, Scurlock is running out of time. There's just 7 laps to go.
Yeah, he's running out of time to make that move, and I think what's actually happening is you need to be within around about 6 tenths of a second towards the closest car to get the ultimate advantage of that draft. Because what I'm seeing is there are cars that are sitting about 0.8 behind each other who aren't catching, but everybody that's closer than that tends to be catching quite quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens down the back now. We've got Norman Clark trying to make a move on Stephen Williams. Chris Purnell is still holding on to that car. I don't know how, because there's not much of that car to hold on to.
The battle at the moment for 5th place.
Yeah, Jason Martin has got through to Cluett to 5th place, and now he's on the back of Dave Douglas. Oh, and we've just got Michelmore has got to 2nd place. Scurlock has gone up into the wall. So Scurlock went up into the wall, caught the front of the wall, and this has given Michelmore the chance to get into 2nd place.
Yeah, he's done it at a turn number 3. He's run way too high off the corner. Very lucky not to spin back down to the inside of the track, actually. That was a huge hit for Scurlock. And I dare say that he's going to be really struggling for car pace.
Yeah, that's really going to hurt his car, and I think I gave him the curse. I said his car was the only clean car out on track, but he really just lost that car, and it just cost him a huge amount of time. But again, an amazing save. And I look back to Dave Douglas as well, who had that fantastic save earlier on. Some amazing saves tonight as well. We've seen some fantastic driving, and just what a fantastic save.
Yeah, well, that's why these guys are in the Cup Series. Are the best guys we've got in ANZCAR at the moment. And especially with this package, you almost expect them to make those sorts of saves because... Oh, no, he's back in the pack. Someone's in the wall. They're going to spin. It's going to be Stephen Williams.
Stephen Williams has gone into the wall. Big hard hit, and...
We're going to stay green, are we? I hope we stay green because otherwise it's going to end the race.
We've not had a caution flag out yet. Stephen Williams has managed to turn it round. He's down on the apron. He's turned it round. He's getting it. And looks like he's on the move. It looks like we're going to stay green. So it looks like we're going to stay green for these final few laps.
Side by side for 4th place, Douglas and Scurlock. They're going to keep it off the wall. We can keep it off the wall this time. Scurlock on the outside trying to hold off Douglas, who's now coming under threat from Jason Martin, who's going to give Scurlock a big shot down into turn number 1. Bump drafting.
And Dave Douglas is just down there on the inside line, and he's going to try his best to keep it tight. But Jason Martin's going to try and go 3 wide here. He's just got past Scurlock, and Dave Douglas is just ahead of him. Looks like Dave Douglas has managed to pull out a little bit of a lead. Michelmore is just sailing away in front of them, and Foster is building up a great lead in front of them too, with only 3 laps to go. We're just we're getting towards a photo finish here, and one of the illusion cars, I think it was Chris Purnell, was just almost into the wall again, but managed to keep some speed, and he's actually just getting past his teammate Michael Scurlock. So Chris Purnell in the car that's held together by 2 bits of gum and some string is managing to get that car up there somehow.
Yep, those illusion cars are pretty beat up tonight now. Stephen Williams with that damage too, Chris Purnell, Michael Scurlock. I'd say the cleanest car out there right now is probably Edward Foster, to be honest with you, and he's leading the race, and that's probably...
Yeah, it does look like Foster has absolutely the cleanest car, with just a wrinkle on the right-hand side, not much at all in there. But the cars that are in the worst condition seem to be doing very well still. Josh Michelmore is just doing a fantastic job with that rear end missing off of his car. Chris Purnell is still putting in some decent lap times. But it looks like everybody's starting to settle out a little bit. There's a little bit of a gap approaching for everybody. Jason Martin is trying his best to get that 3rd place. He's really pushing hard. So we've got Foster in the lead still, and he's coming across for the 79th lap. Whew, that was some hairy moments there.
It certainly was, and after all that, I think we're going to get a reasonably tame finish to this one.
It does look like it.
The excellent race so far. Foster was just 2 tenths slower than Michelmore in that last lap, but unless something really, really drastic happens in this next lap and a half, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to put the curse on him.
with not much remaining, we're not going to say anything about the front cars. So as we look further back, Jason Martin is really trying to get on the back of Dave Douglas. We could see Jason Martin getting 3rd here, but Dave Douglas, what a fantastic drive he's had. He's just been he's had some moments this evening, but he has been very fast out there. Really well driven from Dave Douglas. Very, very good job from him. But Foster has just absolutely just stolen the lead away of this race. He looked like he had no pace at the beginning. He qualified way down there in, I think it was 13th position.
Qualified in 12th place for this one. He has,
yeah. 12th
He's
place,
almost
yeah.
gone last to first in this one. He's gained 12 spots out of 14 possible.
A fantastic
spots in this
amount
race.
of spot lines, and a lot of that was to do with that strategy of pitting earlier. Him and Dave Douglas made that early call on those tyres and gained a lot of advantage on the other drivers. Dave Douglas has got a very, very angry Jason Martin behind him, who's trying his best to get through. Jason Martin just going for a lunge, but it's...
But out front, it's going to be Edward Foster. He's going to come across onto the start-finish line. He's going to cross the stripe, and he's going to win. He's going to win his first ANZCAR Cup Series race.
Edward Foster there just taking out the win. What a fantastic drive. Dave Douglas does manage to finish in 3rd. Michael Scurlock down in 8th place. Chris Purnell managing to keep it in 6th place, though. That is a heck of a drive. And Josh Michelmore back out in 2nd place with about half a car. So, yeah, what a fantastic job. But a brilliant race win for Edward Foster, and his first win of the Cup as well. What a fantastic race to do it in.
Yeah, well, an absolutely exceptional race. That pit strategy that the Roller Coaster Design boys pulled was absolutely brilliant. It gave them the lead at a crucial point in the race, and well, he got his elbows out. There was contact with Clute, there was contact with Douglas, but it's worth it because he's won this.
There was definitely a little bit of help from teammates at the start, but in all honesty, there was a lot of racing as well, and Dave Douglas was not looking like he was giving Foster a race win easily. So Foster took that win with a fantastic drive. He put his elbows out and managed to defend the position. And as we say, that pit stop strategy is really what nailed it. So what we'll do is we'll just go through the finishing list as they are. So in first place, as we mentioned, Edward Foster with 11 positions in the end gained. What a fantastic drive. Josh Michelmore in 2nd place. with half a car left. Dave Douglas managed to finish in third. Really great drive from Dave Douglas tonight. He had a very fast car. Ended up sending the fastest lap, had the fastest qualifying lap. He was really on it all night. Jason Martin came in fourth. Uh, Jason Martin didn't really look like he was anywhere all night, but he still managed to get in fourth place, and that's why he usually finishes well in the championship. Matthew Cluett managed fifth place, not a bad position for him. Fantastic drive from him. He really put up a good defence. Chris Purnell in sixth place, again with a car that is missing most of its parts. Norman Clark managed to get seventh. Michael Scurlock eighth. Stephen Williams in ninth. And then we have the first of the real retirements. Mirko Dautanac in 10th. Roger Clark 11th. 12th Kai Sloggett. Gareth Anderson and Riley Curtis in 13th and 14th. So, yeah, well, that was a one heck of a race to your first calling there, Ryan.
Yeah, well, that was a lot of fun. I'd love to say, hey, I'll come do it again, but I plan on racing these races, and hopefully I can be a part of this sort of action next time out in the Cup Series and in the Thunder Series.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, absolutely.
as much as I've enjoyed you having you here, I hope not to see you in the box again. Hopefully, I'll be seeing you on the track more, and we'll be speaking to you after the race as you come across the line in first place. Hopefully.
Hopefully, I've got to beat those other guys first. Just waiting for
Um,
some of these guys to jump into the green room. I think Dave Douglas is in there at the moment.
yeah, we might just grab Dave Douglas over, third place finisher. So we'll just grab Dave Douglas in, our pole sitter as well.
Let it roll in, but you don't have to brake.
Dave Douglas, Carl Withy here, Performance E Streaming. How you going?
Hey, you fellas, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. What a race! That's the first thing I've got to say. That was a lot of racing on the track tonight.
Yeah, it's good. Hopefully, it was entertaining for you guys in the booth. It certainly was pretty entertaining on the track. Anyway, how'd you go, Ron?
Yeah, you gave me a pretty easy race to commentate up here because you guys just put on the action all race long, and it was absolutely brilliant to watch.
Yeah, no, it was good fun. Look, the incident with Edward and I, basically, I'd rather do that racing for the win than racing for 6th, 7th place or something like that. Silly, but yeah, good to take the pole. One lap speed was mega. So
Yeah, you did have a fantastic run lap pace. That pole position was something else. It caught us a bit out of nowhere, and we just saw it come through, and our jaws dropped. Did you do anything different for that lap? Were you trying anything different, sort of from other drivers that you know of?
not that I know of. I know I make a lot of time through the tunnel turn, which is turn 2. It's just my style, I guess, through there. And then, yeah, I guess I just got a good run onto the straight. But it's all about just keeping that momentum up. You can sort of lift and roll too much, and then it'll just cost you all the way down these long straight.
You did a fantastic job of basically managing that lifting and coasting and just getting that speed back on. But of course, I have to mention the save between you and Edward Foster. What a save you made!
Yeah, I hope you guys got that on the broadcast because it was pretty hairy from the inside. I thought for a second it was gone. I was on the lock stops and she sort of snapped back and dropped the gear. Away we went.
Yeah, it was a mega save. There's been there were actually a couple of good saves tonight, but I think yours might be the winner for the best save of the night. Third place though overall. Obviously not the win, but I imagine you're still not too disappointed with third place.
Yeah, I'll take third. I mean, after the half spin, dropping down through those cars, it was going to be pretty tough to get back through them, and I used up a lot of tyre to get back through, and I was only just able to hold Jason Martin off to hold on the third. So top 3, I'll take.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to talk to you about was just earlier on in the race, you made contact with the wall and there was a bit of damage to the front. Did that make much difference to the car overall tonight?
Nah, from where I could see, I knew I touched the wall. It was only very light. It didn't crinkle the bonnet or anything because I couldn't see it on that right-hand side. So it might have just maybe scuffed up the guard, but yeah, it wasn't enough contact to do anything to.
Well, that is good to hear. I'm glad it didn't cause you too much damage and lose you too much time. Fantastic result. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to tonight and thanks to?
Yeah, just all the guys at RCD Sim Sports, Blokes Advice for the support, and E53, and you guys obviously for putting on the broadcast, and yeah, we'll look forward to watching it back.
I think you'll enjoy it. There was it felt like the race was almost over about lap 38. We thought that it was coming towards the end of the race because there were so many incidents and things happening. It was an eventful race, but it was a very good one.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds like a good good one to watch then.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, guys.
Dave Douglas there, third place man. So I guess we should grab the winner up to the broadcast booth.
Yes, let's grab Edmund Foster up here.
I'll let you handle the first questions if you like, Ryan.
Alrighty.
I mean, tonight.
Good evening, Edmund Foster. Congratulations, you've won a Cup Series race in 2019.
Thank you very much. I have indeed.
How do you feel?
Pretty good. Yeah, it was one of those which did not have any short run pace at all. So when the pace car came out at the end, I was kind of cursing my luck because I'm like, I've got no short run pace whatsoever. But as it happened, just changed a couple of things and pushed really hard on those new tyres, just hoping they weren't going to go away. And that was enough to sort of jag it after a quick battle there with Dave. So
yeah, well, we saw you get the elbows out a couple of times in that race. Firstly, notably with Matthew Cleet when he got to your inside, there was a bit of contact down on the one of the back straightaways, and then at the end with Dave Douglas. Were you sort of in a mentality of just, I want to win this race and I win at all costs, or were you just racing hard and just pray?
I mean, I don't win that many races, as you know. So when you get the opportunity, you've got to take it. You can't. I mean, it's been over a year since I won my last top level ANZCAR race. So you've got to make sure you take those opportunities. Now, the contact with both of those guys was completely unintentional. With Clute, I didn't actually realise he had overlap on me, the spotters, or I certainly didn't hear the spotter call anything. So I kind of moved down, and he was sort of moving down. And the first I knew about it, we got a little touch. And then as soon as I've got that touch, I moved straight back up the track because I didn't want to, I didn't want to crowd him off. I certainly didn't want to wreck him or wreck both of us, So that was completely unintentional. I guess with Dave at the end, we're both racing for the win. And we came through the tunnel turn together, and he sort of hung to the outside, and I guess hanging to the outside through the tunnel turn, you kind of take your chances out there. And being a teammate as well, of course, we always try to keep it clean. We race between us, but unfortunately there was a bit of contact there. I think he got sideways. I'm not even sure where he finished, to be honest. It would have been really nice to be able to bring home a 1-2, but that's the way it goes. We're racing hard, and one had to come out on top, and I'm glad it was me.
You ended up with a 1-3. Dave Douglas finished third place.
Oh, that's good news.
It was a very good save.
The other key to your victory today was that pit strategy on that long green flag run we had. We saw both you and Dave Douglas pitted quite early. Now, was it a strategy for you to pit early, or were you reacting simply to the fact that Douglas had pitted?
I was reacting. Basically, I had decided, because we went green with about 60 laps to go, I'd decided that I was going to pretty much break the race up into 2 30-lap blocks. I thought that was going to be about right. But at the same time, with the power of the undercut, I was also prepared to go a little bit early, especially if I became aware that other people were doing that. So I saw Dave go down. He didn't actually, it wasn't anything that we discussed over the radio at all. He dropped down to the lane. I wasn't even aware it was him, actually. I just saw a car drive down there, and I thought, right, now's the time. So I came down next lap, and I knew that the guys who actually stayed out and pitted, I knew would be able to get that undercut on them. But at the same time, they would come back with fresh tyres. And when Clute came back up behind me, I knew he had about 5 laps fresher tyres than I did. And he's, obviously caught me quite easily, but the aero push here with this new package is pretty bad. So I knew if I was able to keep him behind me for any length of time, he was going to burn those tyres off, and he wasn't going to be able to come at me. And that was exactly what happened. But of course, then we got the caution then that threw all that out the window. So
yes, well, it was a fantastic strategy and fantastically raced from you guys to come away with a win. It was a brilliant result. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out?
Yeah, of course. The guys at Blokes Advice Racing, for a start, Riley didn't have a very good night tonight, but he organises the whole team and everything, and of course the Blokes Advice for sticking by us on the car, K&N as well, E53, but also Dave, for the excellent battle. It was unfortunate that we made contact, but it was a great battle, and he's one of those guys that you can always run side by side with fairly well, without too many dramas. And so, yeah, it was good that we were able to get stuck in and have a good race between the two of us, and that he came away with the 1-3 for us both. So yeah, it's excellent.
Well, congratulations once again. I'm sure you'll go and have a good celebration with your teammates and with the rest of the drivers in this one. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
E53 himself, Edward Foster, there, coming away with the first win of his season and first win of the championship for him, and what an absolute result. We've just got time to just grab Josh Michelmore for a quick one, and just grab him quickly and just talk to him about the damage and how well he drove. Josh Michelmore, Carl with you here, Performance E-Streaming. How are you going?
All right, Carl. Yeah, not too bad, mate.
Good, good. Well, my biggest question is how the heck did you manage to finish in second when you were missing half your car?
Yeah, we had a minute's worth of damage as well, which usually would put you out of the race pretty well. But luckily it was all rear end, so definitely hurt down the straight. But just got to keep your foot into it and keep thinking about the championship and move on.
It was an absolutely fantastic result from you. We were watching yourself and I think it was Chris Purnell, yeah, sort of racing on with all that damage, and the fact that you guys were still up there just was showing just you have that raw pace in you. Obviously, I imagine you're not too happy with second place. Win is always the best place, but with all that happened, second place has got to be a real good consolation prize considering the crash you had.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I didn't think I'd be up that far with all that damage. I've never been up that far in any race in the last 5 years I've been on the service, and yeah, but yeah, obviously we had a real fast car before that as well. But it's the way it goes sometimes. It's racing.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, sometimes you do come out the loser. But yeah, look, second place is a fantastic result still, and congratulations on that. So, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to and a thanks tonight?
Yeah, it's thanks to the other drivers, my other drivers, Jason and Daniel. Daniel couldn't race tonight due to other reasons or whatever. But yeah, no, those boys, BK Designs for giving us a ripper car each week, and you guys for putting out your time to broadcast the event for us.
Well, you're more than welcome when you put on an entertaining show like that. Thank you so much, Josh. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
No worries. Cheers, fellas.
Well, Ryan, so yeah, the top three there, and what a race. What an absolute blinder of a race. Congratulations for getting a good one for your first call.
Yeah, I mean, they make it easy for us, don't they, when they put on a race like that? You get excited about the race, it just comes naturally, doesn't it? Hopefully that's a sign of what the series is going to continue to keep producing over the next few races and for the rest of the season, and it should be fantastic. And I do believe that Josh Michelmore will now be our championship leader.
Yeah, Josh Michelmore should just take the lead with that one, but Jason Martin wasn't far off. Jason Martin, of course, finished down there in fourth place. So again, even with an absolutely sort of not very good result, an average day, a pretty poor result for Jason Martin, he's still got a decent haul of points, and that's his biggest strength sometimes. So
yes, poor Jason, home in fourth place.
yeah, exactly. A bit of a strange place for him, I'm sure. But for the rest of the season, it's going to be good, and we look forward to seeing some more races. It's going to be good to see you back out on the track as well. Hopefully, you can give us some action like tonight.
Yep. Oh, hopefully I'll see what I can do, and it should be fantastic. But yeah.
Well, you're always welcome. Sorry, you're always welcome back here in the commentary box if you feel like it. So I'll be wrapping up the show here. So thank you so much to Ryan for joining us tonight for the race. As always, thank you so much to Matt Hunter on the cameras. E53, of course, for the sponsorship, and this is Performance E-Streaming for the ANZCAR Cup series. Saying good night. Good night.